peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us. Our world faces a common enemy, COVID-19. The virus does not care about nationality or ethnicity, faction or face. It attacks all relentlessly. Meanwhile, armed conflict rages on around the world. The most vulnerable, women and children, people with disabilities, the marginalized and displaced, pay the highest price. They are also at the highest risk of suffering devastating losses from COVID-19. Let's not forget that in war-ravaged countries, health systems have collapsed. Health professionals, already few in number, have often been targeted. Refugees and others displaced by violent conflict are doubly vulnerable. The fury of the virus illustrates the folly of war. That is why today I am calling for an immediate global ceasefire in all corners of the world. It is time to put armed conflict on lockdown and focus together on the true fight of our lives. To warring parties I say, pull back from hostilities, put aside mistrust and animosity, silence the guns, stop the artillery, end the airstrikes. This is crucial to help create corridors for life-saving aid, to open precious windows for diplomacy, to bring hope to places among the most vulnerable to COVID-19. Let us take inspiration from coalitions and dialogue slowly taking shape among rival parties in some parts to enable joint approaches to COVID-19. But we need much more. End the sickness of war and fight the disease that is ravaging our world. It starts by stopping the fighting everywhere, now. That is what our human family needs, now more than ever.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. We're now going to take some questions from the press. James Bays from Al Jazeera is asking, your call for a global ceasefire is obviously going to be difficult to achieve. I would like to ask you to address just one conflict as an example, Libya, where all parties are already supposed to be observing a humanitarian pause. But in fact, it seems one side, led by General Haftar, has used this period to intensify his military campaign.
There was a truce that was more recently decided again. It is not holding very well. And this is one of the reasons why I believe we need a global ceasefire. And all my special representatives will be very active, talking with the parties and trying to create a global dynamics in order for all countries around the world to put pressure on the parties to the conflicts everywhere to stop the fighting. I believe that this is the only way to address those situations where the parties have been quite stubborn in not accepting the need to a ceasefire, when everybody knows that there is no military solution and the fighting going on only increases suffering and makes the response to COVID-19 now even more difficult.
Just quick follow-up to that from Maria from TASS. You did mention that you were in touch with your special envoys. Have you received any commitments to the ceasefire from different sides in Syria, Libya, Yemen, Ukraine, etc.?
I'm launching the global appeal now. My special envoys will be now working with the parties to the conflict to try to make sure that this global appeal is not only listened to, but leads to concrete action, leads to a pause in fighting, creating the conditions for the response to COVID-19 to be much more effective. And let's not forget, those areas that are ravaged by the conflict are areas where the capacity of response is very limited. And if the fighting goes on, we might have an absolutely devastating spreading of the epidemic.
Yeah, and so Jessica from France 24 is asking a related question. Can you explain how you would protect the world's most vulnerable from the virus, refugees in particular?
Well, the UNHCR and IOM have been working hard to have a plan, working with the host countries in order to create conditions in refugee camps and or in settlements where refugees are, together with internally displaced people, both to prevent the arrival of the virus to those places through different measures, but also to create the capacity to respond and to mitigate the impact inside those camps. I appeal for the international community to fully support those measures. They will be included in a humanitarian appeal that we will launch on Wednesday, asking for $2 billion to allow us to have a humanitarian response more effective in relation to those dramatic situations where COVID-19 has needs by itself, but at the same time is linked to a desperate situation already in the countries affected.
Betul Yurick from Anadolu Agency is asking, do you think the measures taken by the world leaders are enough? And if not, what other steps would you like them to take?
I've just sent a letter to the leaders of the G20. I think it is clear that we need a much stronger coordination. Coordination in suppression of the disease, coordination in making sure that not only the developed countries can respond effectively to the disease, but that there is massive support to the developing world, not to let the disease spread like wildfire in the developed world. And then a huge package, a package to respond to the economic and social consequences, but not as in 2008, a package essentially aiming at the financial center. Now it's a human crisis, so the package needs to make households be afloat, make businesses be afloat, keep societies being afloat in this very difficult circumstance. And this will require a double-digit of GDP support in the developed world, and creating the conditions through the IMF, through the swaps among central banks, through the creation of new facilities. We need to mobilize enough funds to allow the developing countries themselves to be able to have an adequate economic and social response to the crisis. And then the need to make sure that when we recover in a more sustainable and a more inclusive economy.
Great. Pam Falk from CBS News is asking, are you concerned that this crisis is diverting attention from some of the world's other problems?
It is true. The crisis is diverting attention from many other issues. We need to be able to respond to the crisis, but at the same time, as I did today, to make sure that responding to the crisis, we are also addressing some of our major concerns. When I ask for a global ceasefire, the global ceasefire is, of course, absolutely essential for an effective response to the crisis in areas of conflict, but is also a value in itself. War doesn't make any sense when we have an epidemic, but war doesn't make any sense in any circumstances.
Okay, just two last questions. A number of journalists who are online are asking what world leaders you've spoken to.
I've been sending today a message to all G20 leaders. I've been speaking to several of them, and I intend to be in a virtual conference with all of them this week.
Okay, and the final question, how are you feeling, Mr. Secretary General?
I'm feeling strongly determined. This is the moment in which the UN must be active. The UN must fully assume its responsibilities, first doing what we have to do, our peacekeeping operations, our humanitarian agencies, our support to the different bodies of the international community, the Security Council, the General Assembly. But at the same time, this is a moment in which the UN must be able to address the peoples of the world and appeal for a massive mobilization and for a massive pressure on governments to make sure that we are able to respond to this crisis. Not to mitigate it, but to suppress it. To suppress the disease and to address the dramatic economic and social impacts of the disease. And we can only do it if we do it together, if we do it in a coordinated way, if we do it with intense solidarity and cooperation, and that is the raison d'etre of the United Nations itself.
Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in.
Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Punchline Africa Television, broadcasting all the way from the Republic of Kenya in Nairobi. Viewers, thank you very much with your broadcast. Thank you very much with your viewership. We have been doing it all the way. We shall continue to bring you the news, the events, but first of all, hygiene, high-class hygiene is very much needed. Thank you very much, viewers. That's how it is. We better have hygiene. Wash your hands. Sanitize your hands. Stay away a distance. Stay home if possible. And make it a very workable condition. It is the hope that at some stage, this thing will go away. And at some stage, God will take it away from us. Good morning, Africa. This is Dr. David Matanga with Miriam Ogutu, all the way from the command center of the politics of Punchline Africa Television. And she is in the headquarters of Punchline Africa Television. Good morning, Miriam.
A very good morning to you, Doctor. I don't know how you're doing this morning. From the Political Command Center here at the studio, everything is just fine. And yes, we have a lot to talk about today in regards to what Kenya is doing, the preparedness, what the Kenyan government so far has done. So we have a lot to look at this morning.
Thank you very much. We shall look at the newspaper headlines in Kenya and look at what are the headlines making, what are the news making the headlines in Kenyan papers. Bear with us, but we are here. We shall serve you at all costs. We shall encourage people. We shall educate people. We shall take civic education, every street, every angle, everybody who has a phone, pick up your phone and learn how to tell the other what is supposed to be and factual. Let's not deal with fiction, but factual things. Thank you very much. God, over to you.
All right. So right now we just go through the three leading Kenyan newspapers here. The Star, the Standard newspaper, the Daily Nation, and then we shall come and look at other topics that we have lined up for you. That is, what are the priorities of the state in the fight against the COVID-19 in Kenya? And also we shall see the directives by the government and the second part, lauding government's policies and guidelines on the COVID-19 in Kenya, as well as where are the NGOs? These people who normally are very keen and very busy, especially during our electioneering period. Yes, so today we want to find out.
Miriam, that is a very good point you have raised up there.
So we want to know where are the
NGOs to help the government to sensitize people. These NGOs in Kenya already appeared during elections. Where are they? Where is Gladwell Otieno? Where is Makau Mutua? Where is all these guys, Harun Dubi? You see them filing petitions. Are NGOs for democracy only? Are NGOs in Kenya for democracy? They don't even sensitize the people. They are not the ones telling civic education. This is the time to assess, review. Are NGOs in Africa doing the right job? Our people are not sensitized. And yet they pick money from Britain, from America, from Netherlands, from wherever, that they are going to sensitize the people in Africa. Where are the NGOs? At least, Dr. Matanga, I'm still sensitizing people. I'm still broadcasting. I'm not an NGO. I'm not making profit out of this. Yes, if I was making profit, I would have picked a plane and gone today. British Airways has sent too many planes down here to carry everybody to go. I would have gone. I don't need to be here to make a difference. But where are the NGOs? Where are they? You stick with your people. Where are the NGOs? I'm split between my family, the entire family is there. But I'm here. NGOs have disappeared, Miriam.
Mm-hmm. And also after that, we shall look at where are the volunteers. We've seen maybe perhaps it's the nature of this illness that people are scared to come out and help. But we've seen a few Kenyans, especially this morning I came across one volunteer, one Kenyan here, who's trying to rally other Kenyans to see if they can donate foodstuffs and take to the people, say, in the Kibera slums, Mathare slums, people who depend on everyday, small-scale jobs that right now has been shut down over this coronavirus, situation. So they've been suffering. So as much as we're being encouraged to stay at home, they have been at home, but they're not able to, meet their daily needs in terms of food. So we've seen a few volunteers coming up and trying to rally others to help. So we encourage such very noble causes. But also, as you do that, there are also people. Yesterday, doctors, you were looking at some of the security issues that have emerged over this matter. There are people who now take advantage and will pretend perhaps they're running such a thing to try to get help, and at the end, they're not really there to help. So they're just going to, dupe people into giving money because they're going to help the society, but they're not doing that. So even as you do that, please be very careful. Doctor, should we just get onto the headlines of what is making news headlines?
Don't get to the headline.
Yes.
There are people here. Kenya has so many doctors, retired, present, working, politicking. I can't see volunteers. Where are they? In Britain, volunteers, doctors have cancelled everything. They have come back. They are not seeking for pay. But our people in Kenya, they need to be told how much will be there. How much will be there before they come? I want to tell you, frankly, you know what? When I did, before you come to headlines, a quick one, half a minute or 1 minute.
Yes.
When I came here to defend the Ocampo 6, people thought that I had been given a lot of money. People were even asking me. They met me in these hotels. They were very annoyed with me. Why are you spoiling everything? You are doing this thing for free. Surely. Yes, I said I'm doing it for free because I don't know any of these people. I'd never seen Kenyatta. I'd never seen Ruto. I'd never seen Mudhaura. Never, none of them. I just went out and defended because I had a principle. I'd seen what Ocampo had done in my country, what ICC could do. So people here ask you, what is he getting out of it? You sit down with an intellectual and say, call doctors to come and start helping the government voluntarily, and they can send a bus to collect them. He said, what is in for me? There is this word, what is in for me? A tender. What is in? Can we write an agreement? This thing of writing agreement in Kenya is too bad. That's where we are having a problem. We don't have volunteers. We don't have NGOs. NGOs write agreement with international donors. They have disappeared. George Soros, who gives them money to overthrow governments, why can't he give money to cure the disease? I've been telling you, it opens up a lot of avenues for people, lessons to be learned. Miriam, back to you in the studio.
All right, so indeed, a lot of lessons to be learned there, Doctor. Thank you. So now we look at on the Star newspaper this morning, and the headline there. Doctor, I hope you have your papers there with you.
Yes.
Very good. Very good. So
it's delivered by walking.
Okay, very good, very good, very well then. The coronavirus, that is the front pages of the Star newspapers. How Kilifi deputy governor and priest put hundreds at risk. ODM leader Raila Odinga dismisses claims he met the deputy governor in recent coast visit. So, Doctor, these two people are very paramount, and because of the number of people they came into contact with, the deputy governor who had gone to Kilifi, and also this priest who had come from Rome, the the now epicenter of the coronavirus in the world. The deaths there are just astounding and very sad what is happening there in Rome. He came from Rome, and these cases had already started really swelling over there. And when he came here, he just mingled with people very freely. And so these two people are very key in terms of the rise of the number of corona cases in this country in the next, say, a week or two. So I don't know, what do you expect to see out of such carelessness of people like this?
It is indeed very sad that these things are happening, and they have happened in reality now down here. And as you can see, for me, it is sad. I have no words for people like the deputy governor. I have words for people who have not gone to school, but people who have gone to school, or people who went and stopped outside the school and saw the windows of the school and said, I was also in the compound. Yes, you know you have got this thing, you come from Germany, you're a government officer. Go and declare and check. Yes, we know you cannot tell what it is, but the way the behavior he carried out so far, the government has handled it properly, and it looks like it has come to the last end of it. That the people, the places he went to, people have come out. And as a result, there are so many people on social media who are saying we should name the victims so that we can know the number of people they have affected, they have talked to. I think it can also create a witch hunt. We have to be very careful and stigmatizing.
Especially the stigma, yes.
Stigmatizing people. Mm-hmm. We must be very careful, candid, and very calculative when dealing with naming patients, the names, because it could actually become one of the worst enemies than even the disease. So let's get it very clear. Naming patients' names is confidentiality by Ethics International. But if people are insisting, a high-flying officer like that one, who did not want to hide, who did it and then went under hiding, was named by the social media, and the government found out it's true. That is it. But you can't name everything, that everybody who has this thing. It will be very bad. It will stigmatize the families, the relatives, the friends, the places where they go to. It can create even worse, dangerous pandemic than the pandemic itself. Yes, over to you, Miriam.
All right, and still on the front pages there of the Star newspaper, there's a story that is captured on the far top there on the right side. The teleconferencing Kenyatta National Hospital opens a CT scan center to aid in the COVID-19 detection. And that story is on page 23. So perhaps you just get into it, because, Doctor, I think this is very important as far as the measures that the government is putting in place and how it has been very responsive since this pandemic broke into the country. So I'll just read that on page 23 of the Star newspaper. And it says the Kenyatta National Hospital has opened a center to aid in remote diagnosis and treatment. The computed tomography CT scan center launched by Health CS Mutahi Kagwe on Sunday is expected to go a long way in helping the country in detecting coronavirus. It has been interfaced with artificial intelligence software called the Golden Eye for the COVID-19 detection. So doctors in the country will now be able to interact and share information with their counterparts in 37 counties and those across the borders through teleconferencing on a 24-hour basis. Kenya becomes the first in the region and second globally to adopt the technology. So far, so good, Doctor. This is a very commendable, step by the government of Kenya.
Yes, it is commendable, but the biggest problem is that very few people in Kenya accept and try to give the government a credit. President Uhuru Kenyatta has done the best by trying to get these things. There are two options. Last night, I was telling people on the program at night that there are two options. We don't have the third option. Either we save or we perish. Is there another option, Miriam, you have?
We don't. We save.
If we don't save,
yes.
we perish.
Yes.
What the government is doing is to save the situation, to contain the situation. The policy of containment at the moment to prevent the further escalation of this disease. So we should give President Uhuru Kenyatta all the support. But when he comes out to make an announcement, people go for his neck. You know, yesterday there's a friend of mine whom I have blocked forever. If there was double blocking, I would block him forever. He made some very bad statements on the president, belittling the president when he's making every effort to make sure that he is, the people of Kenya, prepared for what is coming next. For example, the communication Google Loon, the balloons will give you access to communicate. For example, now, accidents, we are still driving between Mtetandei and the Mombasa. There are no hospitals available there. Accidents can occur, but if any passerby can call ambulance to say there are people here who have had an accident, can you send a helicopter? You need that communication. We need to sensitize the people about the communication. And this is something that is lacking in Africa. This is what is lacking here in Kenya. Viewers, I think it's very important that we support the government. We support the president, because now there is no tribe here. There is no color, there is no creed, there is no nationality. We are all caught up in Nairobi. If it was to come, it will come where we are in Nairobi. There is no other person. There is no communication to go across the world. There is no departure. There is no rich. There is no poor. All of us are caught in one catch-22. We must fight this disease. We must find the solutions. We must encourage those who are at the forefront of fighting this disease. There is no need of keeping quiet and then you condemn the president from morning up to evening. Some of them are jumping before they crawl. If the president is going to put up a measure about the economy, give him time to do so. He's going to do so. But you cannot just put an economy when you don't have the resources to run it. You cannot announce measures where people will not be, compensated. If you announce today that I have cut all the prices of goods A, X, Y, how will you fill the gaps? The manufacturers need to be paid. The manufacturers need to be compensated. These are some of the things that the government is working on now, Miriam. And we as the media must laud what the government is doing. The government policies must be lauded. There is no shortcut on this one. Whether you go to heaven or you go to hell or you go under whisper. There is no telephone to call God. That telephone is not. Is it there? Is it there? There's no telephone to call God. If it is not there, you can't call and say, God told me. No. We are all in it. We must support President Uhuru Kenyatta in his move to do certain things. Communication is important. It's key to fighting disease. You know, if that CT scanning video is in Kenyatta, you will have saved the entire East and Central African nations. You get the point? We would have saved that. We would have saved it, and the things would have been as we stand now.
All right, there it is, and we've seen recently the Kenyan media has really trying its best in terms of highlighting and creating awareness on how people could keep safe, and we've seen them dedicate. Today I see still on the front pages of the Star, and yesterday I think the Standard and the Daily Nation, they all try to do their best to ensure that you have the information that we all need. And just before we leave the Star, I see on the front pages there are ways to stop coronavirus. We have to keep sensitizing on these matters because we need you to keep safe wherever you were. For those who are sick, sick, we wish them a quick recovery, and we hope, they get better. And if not, then this is just some of the ways, even as you go about your life. I don't know if you're quarantined, you're in isolation, you're social distancing, whatever you're doing, you're working like we are. So what you need to do, wash your hands, use soap and running water for at least 20 seconds. And then the second one is protect your family. Cover your mouth and nose with a disposable tissue while coughing or sneezing. And also the third, stay alert. Speak up if you know anyone who has recently traveled into Kenya and has not self-quarantined. Please report. And also observe social distance. Avoid gatherings and keep a distance of 2 to 3 steps from people. And the last one is self-quarantine for 14 days if you have recently traveled or been in contact with suspected coronavirus cases. So those are just some of the measures if you're in the country and wherever you are across Africa or across the world, just some of the ways that you could apply and ensure that you keep yourself very safe.
Yeah, thank you very much, Miriam. That's exactly what I believe is the way forward, and we are happy with what has happened, and therefore, if these are the conditions, wash your hands, protect your family, stay alert, observe social distance, self-quarantine 14 days. Please, the media this time, you got it right. The NGOs got it wrong. We have to be candid, Miriam. There's no way giving NGOs even 1 mark. Because if you go to the books of the government of Republic of Kenya, you'll find NGOs that registered to educate the civil society on health and hygiene. But how many of you have seen these NGOs in the villages telling us to dig latrines? None. I don't think you have ever seen one. If you have seen an NGO in the village which deals with hygiene, on how to get it, I have only seen one NGO of jiggers. That gentleman with the NGO for jiggers is one of those I have seen so much, because he's not involved in politics. But Miriam, this should worry you as a Kenyan, that these NGOs on the mushroom at the hour of elections. So, does it not prove to you that what we have been saying all along, that NGOs are sponsored to topple and torpedo government institutions, overthrow governments? I have not seen Mr. George Soros sending $10 million to Kenya to combat the disease. But if Mr. So-and-so or Mr. X Boniface Mwangi or who goes to New York to say, I want to conduct a fundraising where I will get people to come to the streets of Nairobi, Mr. George Soros will pay cash. So there you are. I want this disease has brought quite a lot of differences. Let's move on to the Standard newspaper. Mm-hmm. Yes, stop the madness. Mm-hmm. And it again goes to that same, the priest came and he did not report.
Yes, indeed. And we can see there, as the doctor has already read the headlines on the Standard newspaper, Stop the Madness, Coronavirus Outrage. Kenyans continue living dangerously as numbers of cases hits 16. So the first point is the Catholic priest who flew in from Rome, Italy, the coronavirus epicenter, and presided over mass and attended funerals. And also 3 Kakamega County officials arrived from Italy, mingled with people, only forced into isolation yesterday. And also in Narok, a pastor returned from Sweden, held a party and led church service before held a party a welcome party, and the other one, Anan, came in from Spain, and for 9 days had been interacting with people in Makueni until she was whisked away to quarantine. Doctor, this thing has been spread all over the place. From all these cases I'm reading this morning, I don't know if I should be scared as a Kenyan.
First of all, Miriam.
Yes, they even had a party over the weekend, a welcome party.
They are even holding outgoing parties.
A welcome party. He came back
farewell party.
And it's a pastor. So you can imagine how many people attended this party.
That's not a welcome party. That's a farewell party to the world.
So,
why don't you be very frank that some of these guys, pastor, they are excited for having gone abroad and they come back to hold welcome party. Welcome to where? Welcome to hell. This is a farewell party to hell. You know you are affected, and then you go and hold a farewell party. It's a farewell, not welcome. Miriam, why are you putting it welcome?
Well, he had a party. I'm assuming it was a welcome party, but it seems like farewell, and this will be
welcome. It's a farewell.
This will be farewell for too many
Even if he goes out of the disease.
Yes.
Even if he goes out of the disease, the other people he has affected, isn't it?
Yes.
So where do we go from here? Where do we go from here?
All right.
He has affected other people. He has created a quicker way to heaven, to hell. It's not heaven anymore.
So it's a goodbye party.
Yes, a goodbye party, farewell party.
Adios.
Priest, let's not give the priest even credit by us talking about him on our television. He's a useless man. I think we meet in heaven or hell, wherever, if there is space for
that.
The waiting room.
And Doctor, and even as we continue to talk this morning, the breaking news that we're just receiving, legendary Cameroonian musician and saxophonist and songwriter Manu Dibango, who was diagnosed with coronavirus, has now died. And we shall look at such stories later on at 3 p.m. On the coronavirus effect in Africa and across the globe. So we shall talk about that much later at 3 p.m. So now we are looking at the news-making headlines here in Kenya. So
thank you very much, Miriam. You see, this is not a joke. This is serious. Adhere to the rules. We are allowing government. One of the topics this morning is to allow the government institutions, to allow the Minister of Health, Mr. Mutahi Kagwe, a very able communicator. Communication is a key. Bringing out issues is a key to the success. Mutahi Kagwe has brought out issues, has told us frankly, has talked frankly. And I want to thank President Uhuru Kenyatta for having appointed this man. This man came at the right hour. If it was the other lady, we would have a problem. So, Mr. President, thank you. We need more of this type of people in cabinet, people who have mass communication background, journalism, not these guys who just think that they are already there. They can't talk. They want to do things, that I know everything. I know everything about. We have forgotten as this coronavirus. It reminds me, and remind me later that in diplomatic leaks, the judge who was heading the judge in ICJ terminated his services. Congratulations, he's no longer there. He will not be on the bench. So these cases will not, anyway, the cases can't be there now because of the corona virus. But I had already punctured that judge. He's gone. This is the type of volunteer system, method, blood. Have patriotism for your continent. Fight for it. Don't expect payment. How many people have money now? Where is it? Even if you have 200 million, where will you buy the medicine? You tell me, Miriam, where will you buy the medicine? There are billionaires here. Where will you buy the medicine? Where is it? Where is the medicine? Where is the medicine? Have you seen why we should equalize ourselves and remain brothers up to the end? Because we are the same. There is no blood which is yellow or white. The blood is red. Whether you cut an Indian, whether you cut a Chinese, whether you cut a Ugandan or a Kenyan, the blood remains the same. Therefore, let's all focus on helping each other, working as a united front, a community, as a united global market that can save this country called the earth. It's not a country, the planet called earth. So that priest, was very, I am using as I was told, using the tissue in case. Don't touch your face like that. Always, please, mister. I haven't seen yours on the table.
It's here. I just did that before we
started.
Yes,
I anything for me, when I see anything itchy, I do it.
No,
I don't
actually, when you do it one time, it's enough. It lasts for 12 hours unless you wash your hands.
Yeah, but I'm washing my hands heavy.
After you washed your hands, once you touch the sanitizer, it should last you for 12 hours unless you wash your hands again and you have to reapply it.
Oh, so you shouldn't do it every
all
time.
the time. That is now OCD. Have you heard of OCD?
What is OCD?
OCD, compulsive, obsessive. Now you're obsessed with it.
Obsessive, compulsive
disorder. So now people, I think, but this coronavirus has really thrown people to that edge because you want to ensure that you're
don't
safe.
know,
Yes.
Miriam.
Yes.
Why people in the world, let's talk.
Yes.
Forget about the journalism now. Let's talk like people's family, educating people.
Yes.
Why people in the world are confused and everybody is confused. You know why? It's because even the developed countries where we thought there was some sense of decorum, there's no decorum there. Everybody is running away. Shops are being closed today in London. If you don't have food, then you don't have food. It's lockdown in London today. Thanks God, some of us saw this long time ago. We started telling our families, stock, buy dry food. London now is on lockdown. You see, so how can you not get obsessed? Because why everybody in Africa is obsessed? We were not given these other signals. And that means we must go back to our drawing table. When God takes away this disease, let the government go back to a drawing table, Jermaine. Believe me or not, you need a drawing table now. Research is very important. Intelligence gathering is very important. We saw this thing coming from China in November. Any movement of Americans anywhere, if you hear Americans evacuating their people, it means there is a problem coming here. If you hear Americans telling family go, family X, family, let's pack and go to Washington. Also pack your smaller things and go. So some of us started hinting on this, that on 18th of February, I'm on record in history of Africa for having come up with a letter to say, African countries, prepare yourself for a disaster. Because when it comes here, if it is doing havoc in Italy, where Mussolini laid the underground tunnels in the Second World War, and today they can't help. What about here where we don't have even a road for a bicycle? I give you that back. What about here? We don't have a road for a bicycle. There are some areas in this Africa where there are no roads for a bicycle. You have to carry your bicycle instead of riding it. Am I wrong?
Yeah, there are areas which are like that in the continent. And we see here prosecutors have been ordered to facilitate the release of petty offenders in a bid to decongest prisons in the wake of the coronavirus epidemic. And Director of Public Prosecutions Nurdin Haji instructed prosecutors to work closely with magistrates, even as judiciary said deserving cases have been identified and the appropriate directions will be issued. So all these petty offenders needs to go. But those ones who have stolen from the public, I think this will be a good time to take them there, Doctor. I don't know what you make of this. Even as our court halted, of course, its operations due to this threat that has been brought about by the coronavirus.
Yeah, petty offenders can walk. Offenders like people who stole chicken, who ate somebody's chicken or went to the cupboard and ate food. Then they started fighting with the mom, and then you end up with police coming. Those are the type of offenses that they need what we call conflict mechanisms, a peace process mechanism of sitting down on the table to tell your child that next time, before we call people to come and eat the food, don't touch it when it is on the hot on the plat on okay. So these are some of the things that I am talking about. That in Africa we still have quite a lot. And the last paper is how Kenyans are courting death.
Yes, and it says despite a raft, that is the Daily Nation in case you're wondering,
Yes.
Despite a raft of measures announced by the government in a bid to contain the coronavirus, it remains a business as usual in most parts of the country, with thousands milling out about the streets and markets, seemingly oblivious to the danger they are exposing themselves and their family to. So Kenyans do not want to listen. Although I've seen a decrease in the number of people in the streets of Nairobi. Yesterday I was in town to get a few things, and there are not that many people, but there are others who just don't even care.
I mean, Miriam, this is done by the governor of Kisumu. Your home turf.
I'm not from Kisumu.
Your home turf is here.
I'm not from Kisumu, yes.
Yes, but the Kisumu governor,
yes,
Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, goes out to address people, and the people come in huge numbers. I think he should have just told them he's going to address them, sit at home. But for them to come in such huge numbers at taxi park, you are bringing in more chaos. So let's take these things, rules, guidelines, very serious. Let's help the government.
yes,
Let's work with the government. Let's give the government a chance. A chance. Let's give them a chance to work. Let listen to their guidelines. This thing is not a joke, it's real. When you see in Italy, I don't sleep properly now because I have my television in both in the sitting room and my bedroom. One of the things I don't do is never to switch off my radio. I have a radio that I have had for 42 years. It's one of those it picks anywhere in the world. And I don't switch it off. 24 hours, for me, it is my friend. BBC Focus on Africa, World Service. They keep on bringing in news. Even if I've gone to sleep, I wake up. At times I listen very carefully. I'm in sleep, as if I'm listening to that radio. So when you look at different perspectives and the big different stories, you gather a lot of information from what is happening in these other areas of the world. And therefore, it is very strange that people don't read. The men who were supposed to guide others, like Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, goes to the taxi park to address a meeting, and yet is the same one who has made guidelines that people should stay away from home. That's a tragedy of Africa.
That is a tragedy of Africa. And something here, somebody just shared, our social media person there, quoting an Indian doctor in a TV interview. This doctor said that this virus has a very big ego. It will not come to your house unless you go out and invite it. So you really must go out of your way for you to invite this virus into your house. But if you just stayed in your house, this virus will not come for you because apparently it has a big ego. This is quite to the point, and people should realize if you just sat somewhere and just isolate and social distance, you will be safe. But if you keep going out in the streets unnecessarily and not take the preventative measures, then you will caught it and it shall come to your house. You will have invited it, and from there on it will spread. And we want to keep reducing these numbers.
I think, Miriam, either way, let's talk now. Either way, you are in trouble. We are in trouble. You can sit at home, but you need service. The service providers, the workers, the people who come to do work, the people who do all these service providers, the telephone, the internet is gone down. You see, these are some of the things that we need education. Your internet, DSTV is gone down. You need an engineer to come in. You don't know where the engineer has been. You can be in the house, but it is brought to you. So what do? These are some of the things that we must fill gaps for the people. What do you do if it has been brought to you?
I think if now you should allow anybody to come into your house, then you should ensure that they are safe. They wear protective, even if it means having a mask in the house to ensure anybody who comes in, they wear it first and then you sanitize them before they offer you any service. I think that will go a long way in having you protected. I did that over the weekend. A tutor came to tutor my son at home. I had to make sure he was safe because I was not going to expose my son like that. So I gave him that, he sanitized, then now sit there and teach.
So this again goes to high expenditure, very high expenditure of you need these services. Everybody needs these services. You can't hide away from these services. What do you think?
We can't, but we will have to find a way because we cannot do without it. As much as we are inside, then we need to get in touch. We need some of these very vital services. Who would have known? Internet right now is very, very important, and other services that sometimes if they develop a problem, people have to come in. But I'm saying if they're coming in, ensure that they have safety, protective measures. If they don't allow them into your homes.
Now, first of all, BBC ban, it says give him or her a sanitizer before they entered your home.
Yes, I do that. You are not stepping in my house. You sanitize first, then come in and talk from over there, all right? Okay. So, and also I think he also gave us very important tips here, BBC Ban, a very interesting name. I don't know who this is, but he's saying, let Africa learn how Ethiopia citizens take coronavirus serious. It's the role of all citizens to protect themselves against coronavirus if they wish. Why not others? Africa countries do like Ethiopia to make everything available in the way they can help each other, and also citizens volunteer for themselves alone. There it is.
First of all, I would like to say it is upon us. You can see so many of these comments are very interesting.
Yes.
But it is upon us as the generation, upon the press, upon the people to teach, to tell the truth. Tell the truth.
Yes, indeed. Joseph Otto, nice to see you, and the rest of you keep writing to us. So we were looking at the last newspaper before we get into the other topics.
It is the Daily Nation.
The Daily Nation, and how
Daily Nation.
And very interesting, Doctor. There you mentioned, the governor for Kisumu. He's there speaking himself. He is protected, but everybody else is exposed. So this is not good.
You can see the governor of Kisumu.
He has a mask over his face. Yeah, he's protected.
Protected. So it is like a death. We are trapped.
Yes.
We are trapped. We are trapped. We are trapped. We are trapped. And the earlier we wake up to follow these regulations, the better. Medium, there is no shortcut to it. We must work out. We must make sure that things work the way they are. We must follow the government guidelines. We must help from Kagwe. We must support the police, the chiefs, the Nyumba Kumi. Everybody must be supported. We must look at all aspects of making Africa clean. We must look at all aspects of making Kenya clean. Kenya needs that, the spirit of togetherness, the spirit of respecting the rule of law, the spirit of too much litigation should end now. We don't need Wamutata to block everything. The government needs to work and work. Wamutata can come later to see whether we did it right or wrong. This is what the indication we need now. And that brings us to the end of the newspaper, unless you have something else.
No, just something there on top of the Daily Nation, but I'm sure these figures so far have really changed. By the numbers, it's showing the statistics as they are right now. 358,852 plus cases have been confirmed worldwide for the COVID-19. Those are the global cases. 100,658 people who are fully recovered from the virus. That is a very good news. And then 15,433 plus people who have died worldwide. And of course, in Kenya right now, 16 cases have been confirmed. Yesterday, I think the CS for Health gave 15, and then later on, one person was found tested also positive. So right now in Kenya, 16 cases have been confirmed. So far, no deaths, and we thank God for that. So that, I think, is the end, Doctor, of our newspaper as we look at the news-making headlines across Kenya. So now we turn to the other topics that we have, and do we just go straight?
I think the whole, I can see so many of our callers. Ekechichu Chuku say in Germany everywhere is locked down.
Yes, it is.
That's it. Joseph Otto Manasi, Miriam Erono Kamano, Ayeure Itie Itene. I don't know that other word.
Oh yeah, all right. He's saying good morning. You say
good morning.
I'm from Kisumu.
Nega said I heard it from BBC Arabic. Asmaric that 150 billion to fight corona. Then this one is Ogot Nywa. Hello, Dr. Matanga and Miriam. Most cities in US are locked down.
Mm-hmm.
Then top on it is top fan Dominic Inwan, the German here is locked down.
Yes.
Wow.
And John Clark, stop with the jokes. But good morning to you. You're saying some people are waiting for Raila to instruct them how to protect themselves. Come on now.
Johnny Clark is Johnny Clark. I later on discovered who he is. So
possibilities.
I'll keep quiet, and he's one of our leading fans, top fan. Yes. I was reading some of the comments. It is time now to know who is the corrupted person in your country. Yeah, this is an interesting. This is an interesting thing. What do you think?
But how do you know a corrupt person at this point? What are they doing now? That
they have hidden. They have hidden themselves. The corrupt ones, some of them have. You know what?
Everybody's in hiding.
Yeah, in hiding. Yes. And this is the time. If you want to catch people, this is the time.
Because you'll find them in their homes.
Yes, because there is nowhere you can go.
All right.
Those people who have been running errands and so on and so forth.
Yes.
There's nowhere to go.
Yes.
Yes, we got it.
And Nega here, I think he's from Ethiopia. He's saying, I don't know if it's she or he, please excuse me if I don't get it right, but you're saying, you're laughing and you're saying you're from Ethiopia and we've prepared nothing. Mr. Abiy Ahmed did not make proper preparation. But the kits were delivered that were donated by Jack Ma, the owner of Alibaba, so that Ethiopia
but those kits are for
Africa.
us.
But even them, he distributed
for us. We have 100,000
yes.
to be brought to Kenya.
Yes.
But how will they come here?
They will come through Ethiopian Airlines. Yes. No, the cargo planes are allowed in, I believe.
Maybe by cargo plane.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, but time is coming, moving slowly, that even the cargo planes will be sealed down.
But we need those kids.
But if you talk about the cargo plane,
yes.
Who handles that cargo?
Well, the cargo plane will come with very few crew, so it's easy to handle.
But who handles it on the ground?
The people who are supposed to, I think by now all airports have ensured that the people who are supposed to be handling these things are protected. I want to believe Kenya Airways have done what it should already have done right now. So I just want to rest in that. I want to believe.
You know what? If you go deep into this thing of coronavirus, you can run mad.
Yes.
Yesterday I was listening to Dr. Chiza Besigye, my great friend. He said one of the things that can kill you very fast is stress. And we would like to advise people not to be stressed.
Yes, no.
If your wife is quarrelsome, walk away.
To where? You're supposed to be the house.
No, walk away in the house and sit in another room.
And for those who
let her make noise. No, wait. Let her make noise.
You can't say
don't be stressed.
Noise.
If you don't have the money, don't be stressed.
It's not always about the money. Maybe you just
now children have come back home.
Maybe it's just your bad manners.
No, wait.
You're putting your dirty feet on the furniture.
For these children to come back home.
So I will talk.
There's an extra bill and the budget to be made.
So there's a lot of pressure.
The situation is bad.
Yes.
People are going to die of stress. And that's why you see governments are moving in to give incentives.
Yes.
To give incentives so that the people don't get stressed. I marked Dr. Besigye very well yesterday. Mm-hmm. He said the disease kills out of stress.
Out of stress. But yes, also, doctor,
if you are too stressed.
It's not only the women who talk a lot, who can stress you. There are men who don't know how to shut up. And
you are talking about me?
No, I'm just saying there are men in the house who it's just too much.
Me in the house, I'm very quiet.
I'm just saying. So we cannot just say it's just the wives who are now bringing stress.
Yes.
There are other men who are also very stressful. So let's just make that clear.
I know. There are some men who are really not only stressful.
So let's just make that very clear. Not just the ladies.
Very bad.
Yes.
They even go to look for the money that their wife has earned from salary. And they start beating wives. I have never even seen my wife's pay slip.
Agoto Wang is saying the good news is that at Dr. Matanga, now South Sudanese leaders will focus on coronavirus instead of fighting anymore. What do you think? And now they'll mobilize their armies and they'll start. You think now they'll focus on fighting?
Look.
And the peace process now. This will bring them together.
At that at 3
later
p.m.
at 3 p.m. Yes.
Because the United Nations Secretary General told the world to forget about the conflicts now. Mm-hmm. Cease fire. So we are going to look at that at 3 p.m. But for now, we shall take a break. And when we come back, we want to talk about NGOs and the volunteer. Where are the hearts gone?
Mm-hmm. And also some of the priorities of the state in the fight against the COVID-19 here in Kenya.
Yes, priorities. We want to know priorities.
Some of the things.
What can the government do? We want the people to engage us. What do you think your government should do?
Yeah, even for those who are watching us from out there,
outside, yes, you can suggest it for your government because most of the government officials are watching. In Denmark, the government has decided to pay salaries of people, private or public workers at this time. Stay home and we will give you what you want.
We need to move to Denmark then, all of us. We'll see after the break.
Yes. Thank you.
The coronavirus is the biggest threat this country has faced for decades, and this country is not alone. All over the world, we're seeing the devastating impact of this invisible killer. And so tonight, I want to update you on the latest steps we're taking to fight the disease and what you can do to help. And I want to begin by reminding you why the UK has been taking the approach that we have. Without a huge national effort to halt the growth of this virus, there will come a moment when no health service in the world could possibly cope, because there won't be enough ventilators, enough intensive care beds, enough doctors and nurses. And as we've seen elsewhere in other countries that also have fantastic healthcare systems, that is the moment of real danger. To put it simply, if too many people become seriously unwell at one time, the NHS will be unable to handle it, meaning more people are likely to die, not just from coronavirus, but from other illnesses as well. So it's vital to slow the spread of the disease, because that is the way we reduce the number of people needing hospital treatment at any one time, so we can protect the NHS's ability to cope and save more lives. And that's why we've been asking people to stay at home during this pandemic. And though huge numbers are complying, and I thank you all, the time has now come for us all to do more. From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home. Because the critical thing we must do to stop the disease spreading between households. That is why people will only be allowed to leave their home for the following very limited purposes. Shopping for basic necessities as infrequently as possible. One form of exercise a day, for example, a run, walk or cycle, alone or with members of your household. Any medical need to provide care or to help a vulnerable person, and travelling to and from work, but only where this is absolutely necessary and cannot be done from home. That's all. These are the only reasons you should leave your home. You should not be meeting friends. If your friends ask you to meet, you should say no. You should not be meeting family members who do not live in your home. You should not be going shopping except for essentials like food and medicine. And you should do this as little as you can. And use food delivery services where you can. If you don't follow the rules, the police will have the powers to enforce them, including through fines and dispersing gatherings. To ensure compliance with the government's instruction to stay at home, we will immediately close all shops selling non-essential goods, including clothing and electronic stores, and other premises, including libraries, playgrounds and outdoor gyms and places of worship. We'll stop all gatherings of more than 2 people in public, excluding people you live with. And we'll stop all social events, including weddings, baptisms and other ceremonies, but excluding funerals. Parks will remain open for exercise, but gatherings will be dispersed. No Prime Minister wants to enact measures like this. I know the damage that this disruption is doing and will do to people's lives, to their businesses and to their jobs. And that's why we've produced a huge and unprecedented programme of support both for workers and for business. And I can assure you that we will keep these restrictions under constant review. We will look again in 3 weeks and relax them if the evidence shows we are able to. But at present, there are just no easy options. The way ahead is hard, and it is still true that many lives will, sadly, be lost. And yet it is also true that there is a clear way through. Day by day, we are strengthening our amazing NHS with 7,500 former clinicians now coming back to the service. With the time you buy, by simply staying at home, we are increasing our stocks of equipment. We are accelerating our search for treatments. We're pioneering work on a vaccine. And we are buying millions of testing kits that will enable us to turn the tide on this invisible killer. I want to thank everyone who is working flat out to beat the virus. Everyone from the supermarket staff to the transport workers to the carers to the nurses and doctors on the front line. But in this fight, we can be in no doubt that each and every one of us is directly enlisted. Each and every one of us is now obliged to join together to halt the spread of this disease, to protect our NHS and to save many, many thousands of lives. And I know that as they have in the past, so many times, the people of this country will rise to that challenge and we will come through it stronger than ever. We will beat the coronavirus and we will beat it together. And therefore, I urge you at this moment of national emergency to stay at home, protect our NHS and save lives. Thank you.
And indeed to foster communication and enable Kenyans to retain and enhance remote access to their offices and enterprises, my administration has granted approvals that will ensure that universal 4G data health coverage is available throughout our country. I am pleased to announce that the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority has signed an agreement with Google Loon in order to allow Loon balloons to fly over Kenyan airspace. These balloons, which will hover well above our commercial airspace, will carry 4G base stations and have the capacity to provide wider signal coverage. This intervention will enable Kenya to retain her competitive advantage in ICT and innovation in the midst of the current crisis, while at the same time laying foundations for greater expansion once the current health challenge is contained. The development will also enable Telkom Kenya and Google Loon to start the commercial rollout of a 4G data network in our country. These two companies have been testing this service for the last 2 years. Once inaugurated, this service will extend Telkom Kenya's 4G network to areas that are not covered by any of our mobile network providers. Therefore, all Kenyans, wherever they are in our country, will enjoy access to high-speed and affordable internet services. I note the gesture by Google Loon and Telkom to offer their 4G service to support our efforts in surveillance and management of coronavirus infections, and this will go a long way in containing the present health challenge. Indeed, access to these services will keep Kenyans connected to emergency services and to their loved ones, whether isolated or in quarantine, or whether working from home or their usual workplaces. Equally, this service will also enable teachers and students to access education materials remotely, especially in this challenging time. thus enabling our students to continue learning from home. As you are all aware, my administration has developed and is implementing a comprehensive lessons program for all our learners to access while safe within their homes. On that note, I want to continue thanking members of our fourth estate who have also agreed to adjust their own daytime programming to accommodate our children at home. The Google Loon and Telkom Kenya partnership allows learners in every corner of our country to continue learning through access to soft copy edition materials and assignments. I want to thank all those in government from the various ministries who have worked hard over the last 2 weeks or so to fast-track this process of approval, and also on behalf of the Kenyan people to thank Google Loon for offering this service, initially without levying any charges, for this is what true partnership between the government and the private sector means. We are currently also working on other initiatives to support our private sector during this particular difficult time. Most importantly, to ensure that they are able to continue to pay our hard-working Kenyans who have been employed by them. But we would also encourage that our companies and businesses do also that which they can to work with us and to support government during this particular period. The use of technology will increasingly become important. Only yesterday, the Kenyatta Diagnostic Center here at Kenyatta Hospital, where we have the CT scan center, we did, and it was the first to happen on the African continent using technology. They were able to remotely conference with 3 centers in China, one in Egypt, another in France, and also with Eldoret Moi Referral Teaching Hospital, where they were able to exchange with professionals and clinical officers across the world to share both experiences and practical ways in which we can defeat this virus that is upon us. So the use of technology will continue to become increasingly important as we move forward. More updates on the state or our current state of the virus will be given later by the Ministry of Health in their regular daily briefings. But at this juncture, I cannot but continue to emphasize the need for each and every one of us to follow the protocols that have been laid out by the Ministry of Health. Most importantly, with regard to the danger posed to our population by people who flagrantly refuse to adhere to the laid down protocols. I want to once again and categorically reaffirm that the government will take the severest action against any individual who knowingly breach these laid down conventions and procedures and in turn put the rest of the population at risk. So I encourage you, each and every one of you, let us follow the guidelines as has been given by the Ministry of Health. Let us be our brother's keeper. Let us be our sister's keeper. And I am sure that if we do this, we shall overcome this particular pandemic. As I said, in a few days' time, we shall also be having a further session with private sector where we shall be announcing a raft of measures that the government will take to support our businesses and to support our people during this particularly difficult time. I thank you all, and thank you all for coming. Asanteni sana. Thank you.
Following consultation with social partners, we have set up a solidarity fund which South African businesses, organizations and individuals and members of the international community can contribute to. The fund will focus efforts to combat the spread of the virus, help us to track the spread, care for those who are ill, and support those whose lives are disrupted. The fund will complement what we are doing in the public sector. I'm pleased to announce that this fund will be chaired by Ms. Gloria Serobe, and the deputy chairperson will be Mr. Adrian Enthoven. The fund has a website, www.solidarityfund.co.za, and anyone can begin to deposit funds into this account from tonight, acting in solidarity with South Africans who are vulnerable. The fund will be administered by a reputable team of people drawn from the financial institutions, accounting firms, and government. It will fully account for every cent contributed and will publish the details on the website. It will have a board of eminent South Africans to ensure proper governance. To get things moving, government is providing seed capital of 150 million rand, and the private sector has already pledged to support the fund with financial contributions in the coming period. We will be spending money to save lives and to support the economy. In this regard, we must applaud the commitment that has been made in this time of crisis by the Rupert and Oppenheimer families of 1 billion rand each to assist small businesses and their employees affected by the coronavirus pandemic.
Of the media, it is a pleasure to be with you in this virtual stakeout. I know one of the UN correspondents has been hit by the epidemic. My thoughts are with all of you in this difficult moment we are all facing. We are facing a global health crisis, unlike any in 75-year history of the United Nations, one that is spreading human suffering, infecting the global economy, and upending people's lives. A global recession, perhaps of record dimensions, is a near certainty. The International Labour Organization has just reported that workers around the world could lose as much as $3.4 trillion in income by the end of this year. This is, above all, a human crisis that calls for solidarity. Our human family is stressed and the social fabric is being torn. People are suffering, sick, and scared. And current responses at the country level will not address the global scale and complexity of the crisis. This is a moment that demands coordinated, decisive, and innovative policy action from the world's leading economies. We must recognize that the poorest and most vulnerable, especially women, will be the hardest hit. I welcome the decision by G20 leaders to convene an emergency summit next week to respond to the epic challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic, and I look forward to taking part. My central message is clear. We are in an unprecedented situation, and the normal rules no longer apply. We cannot resort to the usual tools in such unusual times. The creativity of the response must match the unique nature of the crisis, and the magnitude of the response must match its scale. Our world faces a common enemy. We are at war with a virus. COVID-19 is killing people as well as attacking the real economy at its core: trade, supply chains, businesses, jobs. Entire countries and cities are in lockdown, borders are closing, companies are struggling to stay in business, and families are simply struggling to stay afloat. But in managing this crisis, we also have a unique opportunity. Done right, we can steer the recovery towards a more sustainable and inclusive path. But poorly coordinated policies risk locking in or even worsening already unsustainable inequalities, reversing hard-won development gains and poverty reduction. I call on world leaders to come together and offer an urgent and coordinated response to this global crisis. I see three critical areas for action. First, tackling the health emergency. Many countries have exceeded the capacity to care for even mild cases in dedicated health facilities, with many unable to respond to the enormous needs of the elderly. Even in the wealthiest countries, we see health systems buckling under pressure. Health spending must be scaled up right away to meet urgent needs and the surge in demand, expanding testing, bolstering facilities, supporting healthcare workers, and ensuring adequate supplies with full respect for human rights and without stigma. It has been proven that the virus can be contained. It must be contained. If we let the virus spread like wildfire, especially in the most vulnerable regions of the world, it would kill millions of people. As we need to immediately move away from a situation where each country is undertaking its own health strategies to one that ensures in full transparency a coordinated global response, including helping countries that are less prepared to tackle the crisis. Governments must give the strongest support to the multilateral effort to fight the virus, led by the World Health Organization, whose appeals must be fully met. The health catastrophe makes clear that we are only as strong as the weakest health system. Global solidarity is not only a moral imperative, it is in everyone's interests. Second, we must focus on the social impact and the economic response and recovery. Unlike the 2008 financial crisis, injecting capital in the financial sector alone is not the answer. This is not a banking crisis, and indeed banks must be part of the solution. And it is not an ordinary shock in supply and demand. It is a shock to society as a whole. The liquidity of the financial system must be guaranteed, and banks must use their resilience to support their customers. But let's not forget, this is essentially a human crisis. Most fundamentally, we need to focus on people, low-wage workers, small and medium enterprises, the most vulnerable. And that means wage support, insurance, social protection, preventing bankruptcies and job loss. And that also means designing fiscal and monetary responses to ensure that the burden does not fall on those who can least afford it. The recovery must not come on the backs of the poorest, and we cannot create a legion of new poor. We need to get resources directly in the hands of people. A number of countries are taking up social protection initiatives, such as cash transfers and universal income. We need to take it to the next level to ensure support reaches those entirely dependent on the informal economy and countries less able to respond. Remittances are a lifeline in the developing world, especially now. Countries have already committed to reduce remittance fees to 3%, much below the current average levels. The crisis requires us to go further, getting as close to zero as possible. In addition, G20 leaders have taken steps to protect their own citizens and economies by waiving interest payments. We must apply the same logic to the most vulnerable countries in our global village and alleviate their debt burden. Across the board, we need a commitment to ensure adequate financial facilities to support countries in difficulties. The IMF, the World Bank, and other international financial institutions play a key role. The private sector is essential in creating investment opportunities and protecting jobs. and we must refrain from the temptation of resorting to protectionism. This is the time to dismantle trade barriers and re-establish supply chains.
I'm joining the World Health Organization's Safe Hands Challenge. Hand washing is one of the most effective ways of preventing the spread of coronavirus. Wash your hands with soap and water for at least 40 to 60 seconds.
Welcome back, viewers. Thank you very much. This is the final part of our Good Morning Africa. However, elsewhere in Africa is morning, in Europe is morning. For us in Kenya is good afternoon. Lakini, but let's make it workable. The situation wants the questions that were left to where are the NGOs? That's one. Where are the volunteers? That's two. To encourage and support the government in their fight against coronavirus, COVID-19. We need to call upon volunteers. We need to call upon volunteer doctors, volunteer nurses. This is the time when you should come out and you show your skills, help the public, sensitize the public. Don't wait for pay. Because even if they pay you now, all of us are going. God forbid. Don't wait for that payment. Let's wait. Let's do something. Let's help the government. Let's come up. Nurses who are on duty are as equal as you who is off duty. When time comes for a situation, if it becomes worse, we should have a huge number of nurses waiting to come to help voluntarily, like things are happening in Britain. British nurses have come out, all those retired, those who are on leave, everybody has gone back, including those who left service a long time ago. That is the spirit of volunteership. That is what I'm preaching. That is what I'm believing this will happen, and we can happen and create a better Africa for ourselves. If we don't come up to volunteer, to have patriotic hearts, to speak for this continent, but only wait for money, talk about money, money, money. Mercantile capitalism has engulfed us. Because I've talked about volunteer, I want to bring one clip of a lady who stood up, who went home. May her soul rest in peace. She went home but stood up to talk for the millions who could not talk. She stood up to change the world for the millions who could not change it. Let's see this clip of Wangari Maathai, or Maathai Wangari, Professor Maathai Wangari, a Kenyan, a lady who stood firm, a lady who worked for the world tirelessly. She went home happy that some of the things that she wanted to achieve were achieved. have a look at that video.
I have said several times I'm concluding, but let me conclude with a little story that I like to give, because I've talked about a lot of issues. I know you are very well informed and you probably think, what can we do? I like to tell a story of a hummingbird. I don't know how many of you have heard me tell about the hummingbird, but I like to tell about the story of a hummingbird because quite often we feel overwhelmed. So this story of a hummingbird, which I learned from Japan, is the story of a forest that caught fire. And it was a huge fire, and it was raging. And all the animals came out of the forest and stood by the edge of the forest, and they were watching the fire. They were very overwhelmed. They were powerless. They felt like there was nothing they could do because the problem was too much for them, except this little hummingbird. The hummingbird said, I'm going to do something about the fire. So it flew to the nearest stream, took a drop of water, and flew back and put it on the fire. Then back again, brought another drop of water and put it on the fire. And it kept going as fast as it could, every time bringing a drop of water and putting it on the fire. In the meantime, all these animals are discouraging it and are persuading it not to bother because it is too little. You have a beak is too little. You are bringing very little water, and some of the animals that are talking like that are the elephants with the big trunks, which could bring much more water, but the hummingbird just kept doing what it knew best without wasting any time. And to stop them when they said, what do you think you are doing? And the hummingbird said, I'm doing the best I can. And for me, and I hope for you, that's all we can do. Whoever we are, wherever we are, there is something in our lives that we can do. No matter how small it is, collectively, it will make a difference. So be a hummingbird in your community, wherever you are. Thank you very much.
There you were, viewers. I think, let me give Miriam a go. What did you get from that?
And just before I comment on what Professor Wangari Maathai is saying, perhaps a lot of our viewers from outside there don't know this wonderful lady. This wonderful lady was a professor here in Kenya, fought the Moi's government when it comes to environmental preservation, and she was a Nobel Peace Laureate, and she received that in 2004, and she became the first African woman to receive this, and she was given this towards her contribution to sustainable development. So that is just the background of that wonderful speech. So that really happened that day. She was receiving her Laureate Peace Prize there in 2004. So whatever she's saying here, Doctor, is very, very timely. Look at when this speech was done in 2004, and now in 2020, it cannot be much truer. And really, if we can take up the words and how she's asking, because right now people are asking, so what the government is doing, criticizing the government the way we've been seeing, a lot of people doing, even not appreciating the efforts that the government is putting in place. It is time we realize we all have a part to play into ensuring that we're safe, especially at this time. We all have a part to ensure that we get rid of this coronavirus. So it's not, we cannot just leave it to the government or to the other person or to the other person. We all have a part, and so this speech captures a very important thing that we should all now be focusing on, even as we try to cope with this COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you very much. And as she said it, she did it for the sake of the world. If you look at that story, you look at that story, the story explains to you quite a lot of things. The hummingbird could collect little water, but the elephants that had the trucks, a truck that could go water to stop the fire, did not bother to do it. This is the situation we have in Africa today. The government is the hummingbird. Most of us are standing on the periphery. People are not helping. People are not suggesting. People are telling others. You can see the governor of Kisumu telling people to come to the market. Yet we are telling people to go and stay home. Stay away. Social distancing. We have become the elephants of this world. Where are the volunteers, Miriam? Where did they go? What happened to the volunteer spirit? Who killed the volunteer spirit in Africa? Who destroyed the volunteer spirit? Who brought in the money element? Everything, money, money, money. You remember this song, No Love Without Cash? No love without finance.
No romance without finance.
Yes, no romance without, I don't know whether it's love or romance or whatever.
No romance
These
without
songs
finance
brought us where we are today. But where they came from, people are volunteers. Can you believe that? In Britain, over 10,000 nurses retired. They have volunteered to go back to work for free. There's only pocket money and a bus and a petrol. Do we have people in Africa who can volunteer to do the work without to pay? Do you have anyone except myself who does work without pay at times? The 6 years or 8 years that I endeavored to clear the Ocampo 6 was not paid. I had to struggle at times with friends giving me tickets here and there, go. At times selling my own car. Logbook to Mr. Wamatiangi. Mr. Wamatangi, the governor, the senator of Kiambu. He had to give me 300,000 and I gave him the logbook. But there was nobody willing to say, hello, you are doing a good job. Can you stand up and go? If I don't say it myself, who will say it for me? Here we are. Volunteer and the volunteers have disappeared in Africa. There's nothing for free. Your comment.
All right, indeed. And perhaps, I don't know, especially at this time, maybe we require more people to come up. But perhaps, I don't know if it's the nature of this illness that are making people to really get scared of coming in and helping, because we know there's a shortage of even protective gears in this country, and also indeed in Africa and across the world, because people are not really prepared. When it started in China, we thought, it's just a China thing. It will just pass away. And so people didn't think this will be a global problem. So now it's here and everybody's trying to put things in order, but people did not use that window while it was still in China to prepare. So right now when you go to countries, every country, even America, the great America itself, it does not even have enough of these things. So when you come down here in Kenya and even indeed other African countries, people are scared. So as much as people would like to come out, and they don't even know how. And because this is a disease that people don't even understand much, and the nature in which it really spreads, people have been scared. They've just gone under, and nobody wants to come out and volunteer. And even if they were to come out and volunteer, I don't know in what ways they will do this, but perhaps the people who right now should be perhaps playing a part in ensuring creating awareness and helping out other NGOs who normally are very loud, especially during electioneering periods. But right now, I don't know, there are a few tweets that I was seeing from a number of NGOs that were shared with me here earlier by a colleague. I don't know, let me just read, maybe you can tell me what you make of it. And so right now, they're still talking about the locust invasion, and they're saying locusts have eaten tons of food across the country. Kenya will be hit by drought very soon. The government of Kenya ignored to spread the locust. There's two disasters, but this is not the time. So you see, when you go back and look at what Wangari Maathai was saying, and that message that you're seeing, some people, it's easier for them to just heap the blame on the government, but we all have a part to play. And I think this is not the time to apportion blame in that manner. And people are coming out and even spreading this malicious information about the number of people who perhaps have been infected. I think the government came very clear, and as it is now, I think we should leave it to the government who perform the test and who have the official figures. When we have very careless, there are some tweets I can't even read here that will send Kenyans into a panic mode, mentioning numbers that have not been verified about the people who have been infected, and this is very wrong. Let the government verify, and I think the government, as much as sometimes it lags behind in a lot of things, I think on this time, even for the people who don't agree with this government in so many levels, have agreed that President Uhuru Kenyatta and his leadership, and especially the able CS for health that he put in place, Mr. Mutahi Kagwe, are really, really doing their best to ensure that Kenyans get the information they need, that Kenyans are able to keep themselves safe, and whatever it is, the government, it's doing its best. And for those people, I don't know, Doctor, if you watched the news last night, and I know you did, who came back from abroad and are now do not want to go to the quarantine center, and they're saying they're being sent to hotels which are very expensive. I'm saying, and we've been saying this, if you don't have to come back home, do not come back home. And if you're just coming back home for the sake of it, then I think the government should make these stringent measures and make them so punitive that if you don't have to come back home at this time, then you will not have to come back. So when they send you there and you have to pay for that hotel, that will keep others away up there and make sure all of us are safe. So I think it's a double-edged sword on this one. Some Kenyans are complaining, and why should they be taken? Perhaps they should be taken to the Boma Hotel because it is owned by the Red Cross, and this is the time the Red Cross should come in and assist. But also I'm saying, do you have to come back home from Italy at this time, from UK at this time? Must you really be here now? Can't you just wait over there? So if you keep coming back here, the government will not keep footing up this bill. So you might have to take care of that because the government has other bigger things to worry about. So we're here trying to contain an illness, and then you insist on coming back home instead of staying there and ensuring that we are able to contain this illness. So if you really don't have to come and you think you want to come back, then you should foot your bill.
Thank you very much, Miriam. If you want to come back, come back. But if you're not ready to foot it, don't come.
Don't come back.
Yes. So you see, some of us have made decisions. Do I go? Do I not? We have been given notification by places where we live. Come. Extra flights have been put on. But look at inconveniences. You land there, you have a house, but you don't go to your house. So the best thing is to stay where you are safe and wait until conditions become better, then you can go. And that's what we decided. And that's it. Because if you go, even if you go to London today, you fly in, they will not take you home.
You have to be quarantined. Yes.
Yes, you have to go. Luckily enough, there they will be quarantined. And there's, of course, services they have holds for the government. There's what we call a social contract. There's no social contract here. It's not there. The services will be available, the kids, everything in those centers that they are quarantining people. There's doctors have gone to do the tests. And if your test says that you don't have anything, you go home. So it is the same way while you go through that long journey. It's better to stay where you are, where you feel you are safe. If your property, your family, and other people, I am part of one of those who has one member of the family. My 6th child daughter is not well. And she was caught up because she works in some of these places, one of the places as a manageress, and she got maybe came across some of the symptoms. We are praying. She's talking to me every 1 hour or 2 hours to say, Dad, there is improvement, there is that. That is some of the hard situations we are making. But because of the treatment, she will be all right. She will come out of it. But the situation is that only 1 out of 10 would volunteer in Africa. That is true. And the clerk, you know very well, I've volunteered before. And even people were very annoyed for me when I told them I was doing this for saving Africa. When I went to file an application in the European Court of Justice for sanctions to be removed against Zimbabwe, people even laughed at me. Part of the problem why I and Khan, Mr. Khan, the solicitor of Mudaura, is that because I filed a case to remove, to stop, to quicken the collapse of the case. And he told me, why did you file this? You see? Up to today, I will never greet Khan. What is his name? The solicitor for Ruto. The famous man who now masquerades as a UN something. I have no respect for him. No respect for that guy, ever.
Khan is from the Queen's Council.
The Queen, what Queen's Council? I have no respect for him. Khan has, I will never respect him. And those who listening, watching, I know, I can't tell you the story on national TV. But these are thieves masquerading as people, you know, as very decent people trying to get jobs in the international community. I saw him on Al Jazeera yesterday. He's not worth a volunteer. Talking what? Talking nonsense. You know, I filed a case to bring down the cases. But the lawyers took all what they were supposed to. They took it because they have no volunteer heart. They are mercenaries. Mercenaries. Sign here. Yes, I've seen your problem. Your definite penalty is here, but sign and leave me a signature. I will collect the money. We have those hearts in Africa. That's why people are not coming out to help the COVID-19, to help the government. Yes, let's talk the truth. We have those hearts in Africa. Miriam, there are plenty of them. For everything they do, they need money. And that's why Africa is behind. That's why corruption is rampant. You cannot talk about anything. If you don't have a volunteer heart, you'll always commit corruption. Check on the people. You reach his office, he says, how much is it in for me? Have you heard that? You wanted to jump out of the window. There are people here in this country who are asking for hard cash in dollars in high government offices. So you can't have volunteers. Everything here, there's no volunteership. That's why people are not coming out to help the government. The nurses cannot come back. Somebody cannot ride his bicycle from home to the Kenyatta Hospital when he has the expertise to operate on a person to become well. They can't do it. Believe me or not, that's the situation we have in Africa. But we don't have several of the late Wangari Maathai, or Maathai Wangari.
Wangari Maathai.
Wangari Maathai, yes. We don't have many. We don't have them. We don't have them at all. Not many. That's the tragedy of our continent. That's the tragedy of our countries. I want to thank all of you for all as analysts. Miriam has something else.
Just a very quick update here I'm receiving here. Just in, Kenya Airways offering one-way ticket to Kenyans in New York, USA in urgent need of return home today. and over the coronavirus pandemic. And then the other one, South Africa's coronavirus case have risen to 553, up by 153 in 24 hours. And then 22 staff at Naivasha Hotel put in isolation after a French tourist who tested positive for coronavirus spent a night at the facility on March 10th. And so that is the latest there from the news we are receiving as far as coronavirus is concerned.
I think it is sad. Therefore, that the more people coming from New York to here, the worse do we have facilities. All those planes are flying many people. So let's keep to the word of CS Mutahi Kagwe, who seem to have got it. Let's try, let's pray also, and let's help each other wherever it is possible for help. All right. I want to thank all of you, and I want to find solace for everybody. Remember, I don't know whether Miriam looked at my verse last night. Luke chapter 41, verse 45.
Luke chapter, is it 22, verse 41 and 45?
Yeah, chapter 22, yes. Verse 41
and 45.
To 45.
Yes. Look
at that. I always want to end by saying, look at that. And ask God, it is your will. If it is possible, take away this thing from me. That's all my prayer every evening and every morning and in any program that I end up from. You have seen of late. You are aware that I was going to be a bishop. I would have been a very big bishop by now, but my uncles refused and they removed me forcefully from Bishop Tucker College Mukono, which is the Mukono Christian University now. I was going to be Reverend David Matanga. It would have been very, very good. And look at those verses. When Jesus came back, he found people asleep, very deep sleep. He said, you see, wake up and I will go. The time has come. And a few meters, if you go down the chapter, you'll see that is when Jesus was captured. What was it that Jesus saw? What was he going through at that time? We should not only talk about corona, but let's talk about the spiritual well-being of human beings. What is it that you are going through now? What is it that you can offer? Can you stand the times until Father takes away the body? This is radio, this television station, this program, The Good Morning Show, was brought to you by Punchline Africa Television. For me, from the command center, political command center of Punchline Television, I say goodbye to Africa, goodbye to the world. Keep washing your hands, keep sanitizing, keep distance, and don't involve in unnecessary journeys. Stay home. Over to you, Miriam. God bless you.
All right. right, very well. And today also happens to be the World TB Day on the 24th of March. So whatever you do, when you cough, please put a tissue over your mouth, because remember also TB is an airborne disease, and you can catch it similarly the same way you can catch it. You can catch this coronavirus. So thank you so much. Let's meet here later at 3 p.m. East African time.